to another episode of Black with a Dash of. I am here with my good friend, world-renowned nurse, um, and all-around just fierce queen, my dear, dear friend, um, Lisa K. How are you, Lisa? How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah? Well, you look good. Yeah.
Yes.
You look a day over 38.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
We,
you.
we
It's
appreciate
a
it. Yeah.
oil of Olay.
Right. Some VO5 and
Yes.
a few Dove with the bumps, like my grandma used to say. Make sure you got the
Yes.
bumps in it so it can rub your skin, your little dirty self off.
Right.
All right, well, good. How you been? I haven't seen you in, oh my god, maybe 10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
You remember the last time
Yeah.
you was at the Mount? I don't remember when you was there.
2013. Yeah.
We are literally in
Yeah.
the future.
Yes.
Frightening. Um,
Yes. But I'm
you
good. Hanging in there.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You seem to have gone to bigger and better things. When I met you, you were a fierce, fierce nurse, the epitome of what we thought nursing was, and then you just left. And then somebody told me, well, that's what travel nurses do. They're there for a little bit of time, then they're gone. She's here often, but she just goes back and forth because they pay her. And I'm like, travel
Yeah.
nurses? Do they have traveling for other stuff? They got travel doctors? What else they got?
Well, doctors can travel anyway because they are considered independent contractors. They contract with the hospital as to where when I was with Piedmont, I was staff, but I was PRN. So I still came and went as I wanted to, made my schedule, stuff like that. And then, yeah, when I, heard about there was better travel assignments out there, I decided to go ahead and jump ship. But there's also travel nursing assistants, respiratory therapists, case management, um, PT, OT, the physical therapists. They all can travel because there's always that need somewhere in healthcare. And it may be for a short period of time or longer. So, yeah, like
I
just
feel
about
like
all entities of healthcare can travel.
I feel like that could be like business. Like you can make that big business. Like you can be an
Oh,
entrepreneur with that.
it's already big business. There is, I got to find the article. There's a politician, I think, in Rhode Island
Hmm.
that is trying to uh, write up a bill for like a cap on our salaries as nurses who travel because right now the going bill rate for a travel nurse is $275 an hour.
Hmm.
So that's what the agency is billing the hospital an hour for just one person for
Hmm.
12 hour shift, which we all know can sometimes be, 16,
13.
sometimes 18 hours, even longer. And then the nurse gets a cut of that. Um, but,
Oh,
in this day and age with COVID, the agencies don't have a choice but to go up on their bill rate because we are asking for a higher rate
right.
because as travel nurses, we always get the bad assignment, the rough assignment. I should say bad assignment, but the more critical assignment. So if I'm going to be working harder and I don't get any benefits, I don't have any insurance, I don't have PTO or sick time. So if I am out, I have something to fall back on. I need more money in my pocket up front.
So, you don't get benefits when you're a travel nurse. Is that why you get more money, or how's that work?
Yes, and there are some agencies now. I think they started probably about 5 years ago. There are a handful of agencies that will offer you some benefits like Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Health, stuff like that. But at the same time, you have to remember it's only while you're working.
Right.
Not whereas, when you're staff, you take 2, 3 weeks off for vacation or whatever, you still have your health insurance. If your assignment ends and you don't pick up another one for 2, 3 weeks, you don't have health insurance.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
that's the question I want to ask you. Then, like in COVID, right? Like
Hmm.
you got all these fears, and people want nurses so much more, but at the same time, nurses are scared to work, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
nobody wants to come in and work and then be told they're going to be on a COVID unit. Like a lot of them just
Right.
don't want to. Now, the reality is that's unavoidable, But they think,
Right.
a lot of people want to have their cake and eat it too. This is what it is. Like if I'm travel nursing, I want to be this luxurious person that works for 3 months and I made $30,000. Yeah, that's nice. But you also got to put on that hazmat suit and go talk to Dr. COVID over here.
Right. Well, when COVID started, it kind of changed. So right now, travel nurses are actually looking for COVID assignments because they do pay more.
Mm-hmm.
So the expectation going in is, I know I'm going to have a COVID patient. There are a lot of new travel nurses who are kind of jumping out here into this world that are making those requests of saying, oh, well, I don't want a COVID nurse. Or you have more so the staff nurses who they actually have more authority to say, I don't want to take an isolation patient today. I don't want to take another COVID patient. I only want to do this, that, and the other. As to where we don't really have that luxury to say, this is the assignment that I want. They're like, well, we're paying you
Right.
X amount of dollars. So this is what you're going to do. Now, everything is built into your contract, and you do have to know that contracts need to be set up before they start.
Right.
So if there is something that you don't want to do, if you don't want to be floated, you don't want to work night shift or be rotated through from day shift to night shifts, things of that nature, you have to put all of that in the contract first. And either the hospital accept it or they don't. But also we know that contracts are negotiable. All of them
Right.
are. And if something changes throughout it, you can sit down and discuss with the facility. But 9 times out, or I say 8, I give them 8. 8 times out of 10, they'll say no. They won't accept it. And one or two things happens. The nurse either ends the contract early, or the facility does. But yeah, it's almost about to be the norm. So probably around, what are we in 2022? I put my years with
Mm-hmm.
COVID.
Been 2 years now. Yeah.
Probably by 2025 at the latest, you will have nothing but independent contracted nurses working in hospitals. And,
And I,
and there shouldn't be a reason why we shouldn't be that way, because everyone else is. Like I said, the physician is an independent contract. He signs a contract with the hospital. He's not employed by them. Anesthesia is not employed by them. They signed their own contract. For some odd reason, they want to hold us hostage. I don't want to use the slave word, but
I mean, it is what it is, right? Like we're not going to
yeah,
pretend that the idea when it comes to labor is to maximize labor through with the least amount of profit. That's just what it is. It's just
right,
the sad part is we understand the baseline of that is slavery, so that's what we go by, right?
right, right,
But my
right.
only question, like, is like, so if everybody's going to be travel nurses, what happens to those securities that people have by being a staff? Have you heard of the Morning Meetup? The #1 community for entrepreneurs, the largest book club in America, where 600 plus entrepreneurs get on a video call every morning, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, every morning for the betterment of entrepreneurship. You heard of it, right? Well, click the link in my description and you can try it for $1. Just $1 for 1 week. And if you don't like it, you can leave. It's fine. But try it. You spent more than that on things you've never used and never will. So take $1 and invest in yourself. Or don't.
Well, what about, you're going to run out of insurance? You're not going to have this. What about that security of having a job every day? And then somebody woke up in nursing and said, wait a minute, the same guy who went out here and decided to start his own business, no matter what it was, whether it was a landscaping business or he wanted to start his own marketing business, whatever, he has none of those securities either. And along the way, as he built up his company and his income, so he found ways to provide himself with those securities, because many years ago you couldn't just outright buy insurance. You had to get it through your employer. Well, that got done away with many years. So yeah, you can get your own plan through Blue Cross Blue Shield and all these other companies, and at a very decent rate, because they know nurses are out here being entrepreneurs. Sick time, things of that nature. People get with your financial advisor. So that's where those conversations
Right.
of, getting with a seasoned travel nurse to say, well, how do you make it through the slow periods? Because we used to have downtime. We used to have slow periods, which is usually the first of the year when everyone's insurance and deductible starts all over and nothing's really happening. So there's not too much work in healthcare and you're not really needed because the census is down in the hospital. You got to learn how to save. You got to learn how to put some money away, which is the same thing that happens at your job. It's
Mm-hmm.
just someone else reaching into your bank account saying, let me take a little bit of that and put that to the side so you don't spend it for when you need it later.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. We have to be that responsible person. You can have your bank do it and put it in a lock. They can put it in an account that you can't touch without having to come in there, have a discussion, yada, 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 before you pull it out of there to cover yourself. Yeah, I mean, it's there's no reason why I can't tell a person not to do it.
Right.
It affords you so many luxuries, so many freedoms. And at the end of the day, you are in charge. Nurses are in charge of healthcare.
Right.
And the one thing that this pandemic opened the eyes to the majority of the nursing population was just that. You run the hospital doesn't run you.
Right.
And that's what I'm talking about, the propaganda, the brainwashing, this, oh no, you're an employee, you work for us, we tell you what to do. No, you don't. You apply for a job at a hospital as a nurse. They offer you a base salary for just being a nurse, for your years of experience. Then you come to the table and you say, oh, but I have credentials in this area and I can do cardiac caths. I can do cardioversions. I can put in central lines, all these other skills that I have acquired over time as a nurse under my name, my skill set, my brain, my hands, and I want you to pay me for it. And I want you to pay me more for it. And they do, but they give you chump change.
Right.
Like, oh, we'll give you 35 cents extra on the base. We'll give you $1. But what nurses have learned now, wait a minute, you just charged this patient $5,000 for that central line I put in, but I only got an extra $1 an hour to do that?
And it's
No.
funny you say that because like these newer nurses that come in, they're learning less and less. So they can make it more factory like. I've never seen so many nurses that came out. And this is funny coming to me because I'm not clinical, right? I just work
Mm-hmm.
medical professional, but I'm not clinical. So when I see things that I think are standard and nurses aren't
Mm-hmm.
doing it, I'm just scratching my head because I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Because you got nurses that coming out of school now, they can't do lines, like any lines.
Right.
They just can't do them.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
we have, Piedmont. I don't know if they started before you left, but they have an IV team where they have nurses that just
Yes.
do lines. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's a new thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
IV team is a new thing. And they're making it to where it's a thing that has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, oh, well, if we have an IV team, then we can just bring in a bunch of nurses that are baseline, that are just above techs, and we can pay them just above techs. And
Right.
they can be like, oh, you have to stay here because you're not trained well enough to work anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that at every hospital. And it's the thing that's scary is the fact that we don't know how far down it's going to go because nobody wants to be independent. We're trained in the workforce before we enter it to be trained as employees, not to be
Mm-hmm.
leaders, not to be entrepreneurs. We're trained to be given money, be thankful for it, and give it back to Uncle Sam, right? Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And all you entrepreneurs, nurses are entrepreneurs because they're independent
Mm-hmm.
contractors. They should be treated that way and they should be acting that way, which means they also,
Yes.
when they start, they should be learning how to manage their money, right? How to invest it, how to build, right? All the thing you'll notice about hospitals is all these older nurses, not the new nurses, the older nurses, they all doing CTEs. They're doing continuing education
Mm-hmm.
over and over again, so they can get more money and they can have a foothold. And these new nurses, they're not even thinking about these CEs. They don't care. I'm just happy to have a
Right.
job.
Right.
Be happy to have a job.
Right.
They'll be happy
Because
with that.
the new nurses are coming in and they're looking at the old nurse and they're like, well, wait a minute. She's making $65 an hour. I should be making $65 an hour. No, ma'am. No,
Mm,
ma'am, you should not. And the reason why we say that this pandemic was again a prime example. I hit the ground running and I knew what I was doing, because it's a learned skill set. And then you have these new nurses who come out. So in to piggyback off what you said earlier, how they're coming out baseline, literally nursing school, that's all they give. They give you the basics. They give you the basics that when you hit the floor, you may recognize something that was taught in class, a clinical to do for a patient or whatever. And you have to learn the policy and procedures of how to put an IV in at this hospital. And you go here, you got to go to, it's a different one at
yep,
every hospital.
yep,
But it is a hands-on job, learning job. And that's why I said, they say, well, I'm gonna pay you $65 an hour and I'm gonna pay her $65 an hour. No, you not. Can she do what I do? If you throw me that critical care patient down here, can she take care of them? Does she know how to do them drips and keep their blood pressure going and watch that
absolutely.
map and manage that art line and that EVD? And no, she cannot. So she does not get $65 an hour. She can get her 35 and that's it. But you're gonna give me my 65. Technically, you're gonna give me my 125 because that's where we are right now. Because at the end of the day, what people are now realizing and nurses are realizing, we do the work of the physician. Now, granted, he's the doc and he is supposed to know more than me. He's supposed to know more than me. And I'm not saying that physicians don't know more than us, but don't negate and say that I don't know just as much as him because I'm taking care of his patient.
Right.
So just as he has all the knowledge of a patient with congestive heart failure, so do I. I have to because I'm monitoring this patient. I'm monitoring their medications, their labs, all of the orders that he's putting in because I have to watch. Wait a minute, you're ordering too much of this medication for him. You're gonna kill him, or you're not ordering enough. Have you not been paying attention to the blood pressures that have been charted in this computer? Have you looked at his lab work today? So it's not even so much to beat up on one another. We work together. I may have 7 patients on a med surge unit or 2 in the ICU, and he's got 200
Right.
because he's seeing a lot, and he's there, a 7-day, 10-day rotation, whatever. I think they're still on 7 days right now.
Yeah.
So with that said, yeah, I want more. Yeah, I want more, and I deserve to have more. And if being a staff employee, you're going to dictate and say, no, we're going to give you what we give everybody across the board, then I'm going to go out here and I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to get what I deserve because these are my skills.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take my skills, I'm going to put them in my bag and I'm going to say goodbye. Here's my letter of resignation and you can keep them pennies because I'm going to go out here and I'm going to get my coins and my dollars and things that fold, not jingle, somewhere else with my skill set because you can't take it away from me. It is something that is taught. So in defense of some of these new nurses coming out with just the baseline, that's literally all you get. It's up to you to take the initiative to say, I want to learn how to do more. I want this, I want that. So you can add it to your resume, your CV. So when you're sitting in front of someone and you say, I want 6 figures for this position, they can look at it and say, well, yeah, she brings a lot to the table. And her skill set actually makes us money because if she can do this, and this is our bill rate for this, our bill rate for this line, our bill rate for this procedure is this, and she's doing, yes, okay, we can give you that because you're making money for my company.
Right. And then what does that look like, right? Like, so these nurses, they come out of school and they go into this new job because Piedmont or Gray decided to hire them, bring them on staff for a 3-year contract. Them trying to make their contract robust, and they're scared of travel nursing. What else can they do, right? Because most of them they just want to work.
And so then you have those who, and we need them. I'm not going to say that we don't. You have those who don't mind staying with a facility and doing the old school, let me work my way up the ladder. Which facility? Emory is big on that.
Hmm.
They bring their nurses in. They force, if they don't have the BS in their bachelor's, they force them to get a bachelor's. All of these magnet status hospitals,
Hmm.
and they force them to go back to school, and they force them to obtain. I don't want to say just leadership, but to advance up. Don't stay here as a floor nurse. Work your way up. And they teach, the staff nurses how to do that, because a lot of nurses just don't. A lot of, you have a lot of older nurses, a lot of nurses in their 60s that they took no interest in becoming a manager or, the educator on the floor. They didn't even know how to obtain it. They just knew some new, chick came in, excuse me, and, got the job. And now this is their new manager. Now this is and they don't know a doggone thing. And you can work this unit for 25 years. Well, dear, if you do this step, this step, this step, and that'll put you in line to apply for that open position as a manager and move up the ladder into leadership to add to your income. So there's that step.
So what do you
The
say to? I don't want to cut you off, but what do you say to these
uh,
new nurses that come out and they don't want to work? They don't want to work as a staff nurse. They know they want to be a nurse. They want
mhm,
to help people. They don't know how. They don't know where they go.
mhm,
They don't know if they can work in a minute clinic. They don't know what they can do. What do you say
mhm.
that they can accomplish, or at least where they can go to be outside the box, so to speak?
Yeah, nobody asked me like that before. So coming out, because I think that's happening a lot right now because of COVID. You have a lot of nurses that are coming out and they don't want to work the floor, but they want to go somewhere else. There are other things that you can do as a nurse that's not at the bedside, that you don't need bedside experience, but the majority of it you do. So you do still need to get that critical care thinking under your belt before you jump out there in the world and decide to do something else. I'll use, for instance, case management, utilization management, nursing. That's not bedside. And now, as of COVID, it's work from home. As to where, I don't know if you remember, like Alicia and all, we'd see them sitting at the
Mm-hmm.
table, checking on your patient, who needs a walker when they go home, who needs this, blah, 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 who's looking like they're going to be here forever, who looks like they're going to transition up to the unit or they're going to transition down, stuff like that. You had that person, on the unit dealing with patients. And in the past, they weren't nurses, and they decided, wait a minute, there's so much into that. They changed that job description for the requirement to be a nurse, because you're just looking at a chart. And if I don't have a clinical background and I'm looking at a patient that, I got 5 days of clinical of them being in the hospital, and it's looking like, okay, they're going to transition to hospice, or they're getting ready to they're getting ready to go to the unit, things like that. If I don't have that background, I wouldn't see that. So a lot of these outside of the box nurse positions, you do still need that bedside experience so you can critically think when you're out there.
No, I agree with that. No, because like no, and but I think that's important. But especially to have nursing staff in some of those positions of
Yeah.
management and even executive offices, because a lot of these hospitals, the doctors are on the board, right?
Right.
And
Right.
we all
Yeah.
know only half of them probably know how to work on a board, right? But they're doing
Exactly.
it anyway because they understand how medical care is supposed to work. And I think the same
Right.
thing should happen as you trickle down. Same thing should happen
Right.
to people that have experience just working in and around hospitals. They should be around things that are medical because they're qualified. It doesn't necessarily
Right.
mean that they've done surgery or not, but there's no reason why they can't make decisions on people's care, right?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think
I don't remember when it started, but I do know, we have something called a CNO, a chief nursing officer, as to where, like you said, the board is
right,
always full of positions,
right,
which is new as well, because it used to be just a board of businessmen. So because healthcare is a business. So you had a bunch of businessmen running a hospital who had no clinical background. So they changed that area, and then they changed the leadership area over us. And we have a chief nursing officer who speaks up on behalf of us about making changes when it comes to staffing, income, and retention, education, stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah, most hospitals tend to do a good job, at least of trying to do that. Like when you have,
trying.
and then like the people that'll be in these positions usually have some background in social work,
Right.
some background in casework. They try to make sure that there's some form of care, for lack of a better term, that is involved
Yes.
in your care, right?
Yes.
Even at the executive level, because you want people to make decisions that are based on health and wellness and not on numbers, right?
Right.
Which is easier said than
Right.
done, but it makes it more likely when they come from that background when they're supposed to have a certain level,
Right.
right?
Right. Because I have worked on the leadership end and the administrative side, and it's very hard not to drive healthcare under the numbers portion, because healthcare is driven by the insurance companies, not your physicians, and that, because some people think, oh, well, he's got this top salary, he's a multimillionaire physician. That's why it's costing me so much for this. No, it's your insurance company that decides how much they're going to reimburse the facility for whatever procedure, what you're in there for, and things of that nature. And so it does, to a certain degree, the dollars and the money drive healthcare and why decisions are made, because we do have salaries to pay. We do have people that we have to pay them, and if we're going to pay them, then we've got to meet a certain financial quota, and but also at the same time, bringing it back, like you said, having the clinicians on these boards allows them to make those decisions for people, where you can say, okay, this case is going to cost us some money, but the humanitarian portion of us is going to allow us to take care of this patient. We're going to keep this patient. We're going to do this case, so forth and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's good. You are always very knowledgeable. I usually, but it's funny because like I've never asked you this. So I'm gonna ask you now. Have you always wanted to be a nurse? Like, is thing you
No,
want to do?
believe it or not.
So
No,
what
I saw
what did you
myself
originally
going
want
to
to do?
law school. I wanted to be an
Oh,
attorney.
I
I
can
wanted
definitely see
to
that.
fight for the rights of, yes.
I can still see.
No, but I was working in a hospital, and it was the hospital that had, the different shifts and schedule, and is open 24/7, that allow you to go to school, so you can
Right.
still work and go to school at the same time, at the hospital. And while I was there, I was like, I actually really like this,
So wait. So you worked at a hospital before you were a nurse. What were you doing?
yeah. So I started off as an emergency room tech.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah, but when I was a tech, we put in IVs, we hung lines, we did animal, we did all these things that now they say no, it's only a nurse that can do it,
Because they don't
which
want to pay
is
him.
fair.
They don't want to pay
Right. It's that. And there was some errors
him.
because not everybody was trained well. And, people trying to put in, I would not want a tech to put in an IV on me today,
Right.
back then. Yeah,
But
because we
yeah, but
got
that's
that kind
yeah,
of training. They don't get that kind of training now.
true,
No.
true. So I would just ask you then why what made that light go off? Because I mean you're clearly just learning, right?
50 years ago. See,
But you
the judicial system is a very broken system.
well yeah
And where I was, gung ho, I want to be an attorney, I'm going to fight for my people, I'm tired of, especially Black men, getting, an undue fair trials, they're not represented well, because the law is almost just like healthcare, where we're promoting African American people to get African American doctors because they understand you better. It's
right
that's racist. That's a divide. No, it's the truth. I'm my primary care doctor, who's the same color as me, who has the same culture as me, can understand why I still eat chitlins. I
Right.
mean, I don't. I'm just
They're
throwing
delicious.
it.
Thank you.
And so that's why I have, high blood pressure, stuff like that. I mean, you understand where I'm going. And so,
Right.
and the same thing
Yeah.
for, the law field, I can sit here. I mean, God, I can't. You could click on YouTube or whatever, and you'll find multiple people talking about, systemic racism, and then you have multiple Caucasian people who say, no, that can't be true. That's not so. Yes, it is. And so with you saying that alone means you don't understand my struggle. So then how
Right.
could you represent me in a courtroom fairly
Right.
or justly? So that was my goal behind it. But outside of the fact that there aren't a lot of us as attorneys, there's not a lot of us as judges. So it felt like a lose-lose situation for me. I was never going to feel I was going to be disappointed a lot. So working in the hospital and looking, down the road as far as the law school and things of that, becoming an attorney, it was, how could I better help my people then? And if I can't help them here, can I at least help them in this area? And I saw that I could help my patients more and feel some sort of enjoyment and have a more positive, having more positive outcomes in healthcare with patients than I would in the judicial system.
Now that I understand, you and others know that my ultimate goal was to be an attorney.
Hmm.
And it's not gone per se, but the goal was always to help my people. I grew up in the hood.
Right.
I grew up in a very, I won't say impoverished because that's not fair, but we
Hmm.
weren't exactly well off, right?
Right.
And we could see the division in our city, and it was a small city, which is even more stark. In the division, the lines were clearly drawn, and you could tell by the way that they shipped us out from our neighborhood to a school across the town when the closer school was a
Right.
white school, was much closer. They did things like that, right? So
Right.
I told myself that not only we're going to do this, we got all these cops that are in our neighborhood all the time, just sitting and just waiting for something to happen. And
Hmm.
you know what? We're underrepresented. We need to do something about this. And the path to that never kind of caught. It felt like every time I got close to the goal, something pulled me away to do something else. And
Hmm.
and that math made me realize that there's got to be a better way and a quicker way to make an impact on
Hmm.
my people. And a lot of it was, okay, do I get a lawyer and become a politician, right?
Right.
That's a very dirty game. Don't really want to do that, right? But it is how
Right.
you get things done, right? And then
Hmm.
I thought, what if I speak to people and connect to people and also let them know that they're not alone in the world and
Hmm.
remind them of that constantly and
Hmm.
coach people in a direction that allows them not to be disenfranchised. Uh,
Hmm.
and I don't know what that looks like. I'm trying.
Hmm.
This podcast is one
Hmm.
way. I'm writing a book. We will see what happens, right? But I know that the legal system is a very difficult way to do it because most cases, no matter what they are at least 2 or 3 years. It doesn't matter
Yep.
what it is. If it isn't traffic,
Yep.
it goes in litigation because every time there's a motion, it takes 90 days to respond to it. So
Yep.
things take a while. And
Yes.
not only me, but my community doesn't have that much time. So there's no
Right.
reason for me to be like, well, I'll get to it eventually. Yeah, no, everybody else felt that way too, so I'm not doing it.
Right.
Enough about me. This is about you, um, the nurse of the hour. So you made that decision. You said, you know what, I'm going to go and do this. But of course, you were still a new nurse, like everybody else. These
Hmm.
new nurses now, what would you tell them? Like, hey, this is what you need to do.
Uh,
Because most of them just don't have a clue. They don't.
I mean, I guess I had to lean back to what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, you need to educate yourself and up your skills. So when the physician comes around and it's the critical patient, the patient that nobody can quite figure out, take that patient. If you're working in the OR, and it's a difficult case, go take that case. Learn as much as you possibly can. Sit with your physicians. A lot of these nurses, they only get 6 weeks of orientation. When I came out of nursing school, I got 6 months, and each month I had to follow one of the cardiologists on the floor. So I had 6 months with six different cardiologists. And the theory behind
Wow.
the hospital doing that was, we get it, you're a nurse, we're going to pair you with a nurse preceptor, but you're taking care of their patients. So you need to learn how they like for you to take care of their patients. And it made so much sense, to the point where you didn't have to call the physician all the time. A lot of hospitals now are going to like standard order sets to help out some of that. So these nurses know, okay, this is what you do if this happens. So, I would say that, ask. A lot of these nurses are scared to ask questions because they feel like, oh, if I ask, then I'm not smart enough. You're never smart enough. Healthcare, no, medicine is ever changing. So you'll never know it all. And again, we lean back to, if this pandemic has not proved that, COVID is telling know nothing. We still know 13% about COVID. If it's on a scale of 0 to 100%, we know about 13% about COVID. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
But we're Americans.
Um,
We know everything.
yeah, it's still trial and error out here with taking care of people. So ask as many questions as you can, and while you're in nursing school, because they some of them know this, some of the educators know, that there are things that you can do outside of the box that's not necessarily at bedside that you can go and do. Get into some of these, Facebook nurse groups, the decent ones, not the ones where people are on there just constantly complaining, stuff like that. And ask your fellow man, hey, what is out there that I can do work from home, or that's not bedside, and people will chime in and tell you. Not everyone will give you all of their info, because nobody wants you to tap into their secret bag. But yeah, ask a lot of questions, but a lot of these new nurses, they do, as you say, they've got to start educating themselves above the basic standard nurse role. Okay, this is all I had to do to get out. I'm out, I'm good, and I'm not going any further than that. No, you do, you're doing an injustice, or what's the other word? You're not doing anything good for yourself, and you're not doing anything good for your patient, because the more you know and the more educated you are as a nurse, the better you are for your patient. Because healthcare is critical, and things happen, and you only have seconds to make a decision. And if you got to look up a book, or ask Siri to help you, or go find that, run down the hallway and go find that seasoned nurse, your patient could very well be dead by the time you get back.
You're right.
So, asking a lot of questions, doing some research. I have a friend who does something called informatics, bioinformatics in nursing. I
Bioinformatics.
met her in 2015. So by 2015, I had been a nurse for not long, 11 years. Yeah, 11 years then. And I had never heard of it. Okay, she's making six figures. And she literally, like, I'm gonna get out of school. She's got her master's. She applied for the job. She got it. There's no bedside requirement for it. Now, does it help to have it? Yes, but there's no requirement for it. And bioinformatics, what she does is Epic and Cerner. So when we went
Mhm.
from Cerner to Epic at the hospital, she's the woman coming in from Epic to teach you how to use it. She builds it behind the scenes. That's part of her job.
Uh-huh.
And then the hospitals end up hiring a bioinformatics nurse that sits in an office all day long, and that's all they do. And they are monitoring and working with the EMR system. So when it's not working right, this is totally out of IT, totally out of IT. You still have IT, but this person is all about the clinical side of that EMR. And for her role, I can use hers as an example. For her role, like, she works with the physicians. So when they start a new EMR in the hospital, she gets with all of the physicians and they build, the electronic record, and then she teaches them how to use it.
No,
And
people
then
think,
she's
hold on. What's an EMR? Just just
the electronic medical record,
all right, all right.
because
For
nothing
the
is
people
on
that don't
paper
know,
anymore.
I know.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, back in the day, we wrote everything out. Your chart was handwritten. Now it's an electronic medical record in the computer
I
system.
got you. Okay, okay.
So that's what she teaches. Yeah, and there are a lot of nurses that do that on a travel nurse part-time basis. It's called a go live. So the hospital in Montana has decided to switch to Epic, or they were on paper before, and now they're going to an electronic medical record. They will contract nurses to come out for a month or longer to help during that transition, because one point I was writing on paper, or I was using this type of EMR, and I'm going to another, it slows me down. So I can't really take care of 6 patients today. I can only do 4. So the travel nurse is going to come in and she's going to take 2 of your patients away from you so you can focus on just those 4, and she's got those other 2 while you learn how to use this EMR, this new electronic medical record system. So
Okay.
that's something that I have another good friend, Christy. She does that a lot. She goes from state to state flying around, because I can't remember which year it became a mandate that all hospitals had to be, electronic by a certain time period, so we can stop having, misdiagnoses, or we've got the frequent flyers who jump from
Right.
hospital to hospital just to get opioid prescriptions and stuff like that. We can actually see what's going on in all the hospitals in the United States. So yeah, that's one of the many things outside of the box that people do. And strikes, when hospitals go on strike, you have nurses that's all they do. They don't work anywhere else, or they may, work a PRN job at their local hospital. And when the hospitals up north who are union go on strike because they're having contract issues, they, send in replacement nurses, and it may be for a week. It may be for the longest one that I was on was the longest one in history was 6 weeks in Minnesota. And we were there. We were there while the nurses were on strike for 6 weeks, and I ended up being there in a total of 6 months, because after the strike was over, a lot of the nurses who went on strike either quit, found other jobs, things of that nature, and so they still needed us there to fill in, those shortages. So that's something that no one ever told me about until 2016. Yeah.
You're a nursing
which
mercenary.
was which was my first strike. Yeah.
That's
And I'm
dope.
like, what? I could be there like every week. So there, and again, there's a group of nurses that have been doing this for 15, 20 years. And, every month she rolls out a list of, okay, who's on a potential strike, who's coming up next. So you can keep a watch on it. So
Right.
you know when to go make your bag, and back in the day, I always say back in the day, because COVID makes it feel it. Pre-COVID, you could go on a strike and make $5,000 to $7,000 in a week, and you only worked 2 days. But you had to be there. You had to do a day of onboarding, a day of training, stuff like that. So the strike itself, where the nurses walk out, may have only been for 2 days. So you're only working 2 of it, but you had to be, there and in state and, at a hotel away from home. So, they say, the block out is it's like 9 days. Give yourself
Mhm.
9 days to be away from home. That's enough time to travel and also to get you back home. And yeah, and knock you out a 5, 6, $7,000 bag in a week.
I feel like agencies could be making so much bank if they were just like, we're just this kind of agency. Sign up with us, and we're gonna let you know when everybody's striking.
Oh, but they do. So there is only a handful of strike agencies. I think about five that because when people ask me, when you do strikes, who do you sign up with? I usually send people about, it's five names, and that's all they do. And then with COVID coming about, they decided to branch off into travel nurse contracts where, they're contracting people for 4 to up to 13. Sometimes I've seen some 23, 26 week contracts, but that was all they ever did, because their companies were respected by the unions and also the facilities, that they knew, okay, if something should happen and we go on strike, this is the company that I can call that's going to get me the amount of replacement nurses that I need, and it's going to be streamlined and it's going to be smooth, you know, so that they exist and they've been around. I just didn't know about it until 2016.
That just you got
But like you said,
we
it's about having these conversations, telling people how you can be a nurse outside of the box. Yeah.
they get there's the bags out there. I keep telling people there's
Yes.
always money to be had. There is more money in the world than everybody in the world can spend. Trust me.
Right.
But you just got to go
Right.
get it. You, on the
Just
other
gotta go
hand,
get it.
you could be teaching some of these nurses. I don't know why I'm gonna have to get you on one of these courses because you need to
It's so,
put
somebody asked me
yeah,
that before, to teach people how to do it, and then,
yeah.
because I see a lot of these nurses, they'll charge like $1,000. I'll teach
Mhm.
you how to be a nurse entrepreneur,
Yep.
and they provide you with, a lot of the things that we're talking about, which companies to get with, how to negotiate your contracts, things like that. Sometimes they have forgotten about that a lot, but also, they forget about taking care of a lot of these nurses' mental health, and I use mental health in a broad range of things because, like you said in the beginning, well, if I go out here and I be a travel nurse, what about all my securities? You have to be able to educate, these nurses coming out here trying to be outside of the box on those mental health issues that may concern them with not being an entrepreneur, guiding them on how to get through, like I said, those downtimes, those times where, healthcare is slow and your contracts aren't as prevalent, and lucrative, stuff like that. So, I think they leave that off a lot in these classes where I see, they're like, sign up for my class, I'll teach you how to be a travel nurse. And that's why some people jump out there, uh, and they fall flat on their face because
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna make $10,000 a week this week. Yes, you can. I will show you how to get those contracts. But there's a lot more that goes with
Yep.
that $10,000. Nobody is going to give you $10,000 a week,
And
and you're
that's
not
what you
going to
charge for.
give a whole heck of a lot of yourself up for that 10 grand. And some
Yeah.
people didn't make it. Some people didn't survive it. And they were like, oh, it's not worth it. It is, it is if you make it worth it, and you know how to get through it. So yeah.
I, I appreciate you. You are always dope, and we are not going to not talk about you having this little business because I can smell an empire when I see it. Right? You ain't got to start working. You just let it happen because I'm telling you, there's so much education out there that gets lost between the cracks that people do not understand. The life lessons that can be taught to people that people, especially that look like us,
Ever
don't get.
seen a beard so luxurious that you stopped what you were doing, dropped your jaw, and stared in awe at the majestic king who just graced you with their presence? It's fine, we all have. If you're like me, you even want to be that person. And like me, you can. Thanks to the House of Classic Cuts Black Mango Beard Kit. House of Classic Cuts is a company dedicated to helping you have the beard of your dreams. They have a wide line of products designed to help you get that person-stopping, jaw-dropping beard. Their beard butter helps you soften hair, stimulate growth, moisturize your skin, and keep your beard healthy. And it smells great too, thanks to their signature Black Mango scent. I love using their beard butter myself because that's really all the hair I got left. The top of my head is a little follically challenged. But the hair on my face has grown to be quite the mane, and I'm growing a little attached to it. And because of that, I gotta make sure I put in the things that take care of it, day in and day out. But they also have a wide range of products for men's skin and hair care. Get yourself a bigger, better beard now by clicking the link in my description and using code HOCC at checkout. That's houseofclassiccuts.com. Promo code HOCC at checkout. Don't worry, you won't be disappointed. The House of Classic Cuts is making facial hair all-inspiring, one beard at a time. It's that beard butter, baby.
Yes.
Right? I didn't know how to invest until I was 30. I didn't know how to do anything about money until I was 30. All these things I didn't know how to do until I was like, you know what, I'm going to go figure it out. And everybody was like, it was always like that. And I'm just like, word? Didn't nobody tell me?
But again, if no one ever told you, you would not know. But also, that's a cultural thing. That's a economic thing. Because if my parents didn't, invest in stocks and do those things, they can't teach me because they didn't do it. They didn't know it.
Right.
And the one thing that I applaud you for this, you're saying, I want to be able to educate my community. That's what we need. If we have more education, we don't need more attorneys. I don't need more attorneys to keep us from going to jail for 20 years for stealing a Twinkie while somebody else rapes 5 3-year-olds and gets 2 weeks house arrest and mental health therapy. I don't need that. We need the education and the knowledge. I take away education, the knowledge, because if we teach our people about investing, we teach them about entrepreneurship, we teach them about, the law and how the system truly works.
Right.
Not that you'll beat it, not about beating the system, but staying out of the system.
Right. Like that is the thing. That's the only thing I've been good at is staying out of the system, but not necessarily how to live in this one. Right. Figuring that out as I go. But at the same time, the people that are in the system aren't taught how to get out of it either. Right.
No.
There's too many people that come out of prison and nothing was done to rehabilitate them, which means they're not they're going to go back in because they don't have any tools. Nobody taught them how to not come back. Right.
No.
Only reason people can't go back to high school is because they graduated. It's looked down upon once you've gone through these things to backtrack and try to build yourself back up. It just doesn't happen. And it's up to the community to keep itself afloat, basically.
Yeah.
Because nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody's coming from other communities to do it. You got to do it. I think it's up to us to learn how to float and then learn how to swim and then teach everybody else how to do it. That is our burden. You leave the world better than you found it, right?
Right. And I think I'll apologize for my text earlier with you saying that because information can't be taught or shouldn't be taught. It should be sold. Something people say.
Oh yeah, the game is sold. The game is to be sold, not to be told. Yeah.
Right. So that's our other biggest problem in the community.
Right.
We can sit here and say all day long. I'll use one of my other outside of the box. Not a nurse, but it just is so nursing. The baseline of it is so nursing, like the trucking industry. I want to get into the trucking industry. As a nurse, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, so you own a truck or you don't, but you have the skill set to drive the truck. You know how to drive the truck. You have the skills. You've been doing this for 20 years. So you're now a seasoned truck driver, like they call a seasoned nurse. So you got all these skills. You know how to get through snow. You know how to do this, that. You know how to fix that truck if it break down on the side of the road, yada, yada, yada. You know, all of that. But you're still working for a company that's paying you a percentage of that load.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. But if you've been doing this for 20 years, shouldn't your percentage go up? shouldn't at some point in time you make more for your skills because you're a safer driver because you've been doing this longer.
Right.
You're a more profitable driver because you've been doing it longer, and you're not going to have an accident. You know how to repair that truck, with some duct tape and some glue, to get the load to where it needs to be, so the brokerage company can make the money. It's the same thing as nursing. The staffing agency are making money off of our years of experience and skill set with that bill rate because they get a cut of that bill rate for the work that I do. So then turn around and be your own entrepreneur. Own your own truck.
Yep.
Get your own load and get 100% of the load instead of just 35 or 20. Somebody was offering like 23% of the load. Things like that. That as a nurse, I'm like, okay, well, outside of the box of doing nursing, I'd like to get in that because it's just like running a nursing staffing agency. Yeah.
Excuse me.
But again, they want to charge,
right.
$1,500, $2,000 to give someone the information. And I get it because I know I gotta pay Georgia Power and Xfinity for my internet. I gotta pay there's people out here that want money from me. I know this. So I gotta make money and I can't just keep giving it away. But we're really bad when it comes to that.
There are ways to do it without gouging the system, right?
Yeah.
You can charge people for information and not break their bank and make millions of dollars. You can.
Exactly.
But people are greedy. And
people are greedy.
This my price is my price, and yesterday's price isn't today's price.
Oh Lord, if I see that one more time, yesterday's price is not today's price. Oh Lord,
I get it. But also, there's levels, right? Like we're not all going to the moon, right? It ain't all Tesla, right? So some of these things are premium, and some of these things are just, hey, get the information out there, right?
Right.
Like people sell ebooks for $5 and are millionaires. You're trying to tell me that their course has to be $25,000? I'm not knocking anybody that does it because I understand that I'm not their client. I'm not their target demographic. Right. I get that, right? Fine. But that doesn't mean I got to charge somebody $25,000, right?
Right.
This podcast is free, right? Only thing it costs me is my time. So, like, click, and subscribe. That's all I ask,
I like it. Yes. I do. I like this. Yes.
But
just sit down and talk to someone because I'm always up for giving free game to people, whatever you want to call it, because someone said to me a couple months ago, he said, "Oh, you rich?" I said, No. I would never classify myself as rich. I would always classify myself as blessed because I have encountered people in my lifetime, whether they were patients. I've had patients that have put me up on game, and include me in on some good business deals or networks that I've kept. But I've just, I don't know why. I've just always just kind of run into some good people in my life that have said, "Hey, you know what? I like you, and I think you're a good person, and I'm gonna set you up with this, and this, and I get the bag without having to pay $2,500 for a class."
And there's something to be said for being in the room. And like a lot of times, you don't even know you're in the room until the room shows itself. But you
until it shows itself to you.
Act the way you act. Be yourself. And ask questions, and you'd be surprised at doors that fly open, not just open up, fly open. I'm trying to tell you, people just don't know. Like I pay for courses and education. That's how the podcast came, right? And I'm in an entrepreneur group, the morning meet every day, and we're always pushing ourselves, right? But nobody is gouging people for anything. But when the opportunity is there to be in the room or to be encouraged, or to be around other people that think like you or think like you want to think, trust me, it rubs right on off.
Yes. No, I do agree with that. That's that old school saying, if you want to be poor, hang around poor people. If you want to be rich, hang around rich people. Because I've sit around a lot of very wealthy people that I look at and I'm like, I'm poor
Right.
compared to y'all.
Lowly me.
But conversations get to be had, and a lot of networking, happens behind that. But
It is.
also, I don't know, it's a personality thing, it's a character thing. You just have to be good to people. You
Right.
have to be good to people, and you have to be a good person. And that's why I always just say, very blessed, because I've just encountered a lot of people that have allowed me to network in certain rooms that I should never have existed in, just for being just being kind to someone and being a good person. And that's usually what I get back. They were like, well, you were such a nice person. You're such a good person. I want to set you up with this person. I want to set you up with that, and so forth and so forth. You tell me when I'm cut off, but
You'll never be cut
even
off.
with me working in the filming industry, they're filming all over Georgia, and it's been here forever. And I would have never known that you could do nursing in the filming industry. I happened to get a phone call from an agency that said they had my resume from a friend of mine, and they thought it would be something that I'd be interested in, with starting, the COVID compliance on set.
Yeah.
This was, at the height of, or not the height, but the down of the curve or whatever of COVID, after I got back from New York. And I was like, well, I've never worked in film. I don't know what that looks like. All I can do is try. And that's always been me. Sure, throw it at me. I'm either going to be successful at it or I'm not. I'm either going to like it or I'm not. So let's have at it. And the first show that I was put on was Ozark season 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to be with them during what the people in film call is prep, where they are building the stages and they're finding the locations of where they're going to film, and stuff like that. So it's the prep time, and then filming started. And in the midst of the prep time, they wanted nurses and healthcare staff on set to help guide them with COVID compliance, with help keeping people safe on set with COVID. And in the midst of this, it was a learning curve for me. I get people who reach out to me even now. They're like, hey, I'm jumping into COVID compliance on set. Can you help me out? Because I will say, Ozarks was almost, trial and error for all of, the filming industry to a certain degree, because that executive producer, Patrick Markey, he conversated with everyone. He was in conversation with, productions in New York, productions in California, well, how are you doing this? And how are you making this work? And how are you keeping people safe? And having those conversations to, hone in and streamline our COVID compliance on the set of Ozark. So with that, I met so many people. And in me, they were like in awe of me for being a COVID nurse who had been on the front line in California, New York, Texas. And here I'm standing and they're like, oh, but I'm standing here like, Jason Bateman? Oh my God. I'm like, you're a set deck and you did what? I watched them make rain, and I'm like, they made rain. It's water. It's water. It was water out of a fire hydrant. I mean, a hose from the fire truck. But I'm just like, oh my God, it's raining. I'm just in awe, and they're sitting in awe of me, and I'm like, this is just awesome. So I've never been the person who just does a job. Like I said, ask questions. I'm like, well, what do you do? What is a set dresser? What is costumes? What is makeup? It's more to just what it is. What is rigging and lighting and grip? What is a grip? Oh my God. Now you want to talk about some respect. Man, when I tell you, I'm like,
Grips are real. Grips are real.
If one of y'all fall, I promise you, I'm gonna whoop your tail on the ground, and then I'm gonna help you to the hospital. But they do so much to bring a movie, a show to life, that it's just amazing. And that's been since 2020, and and I'm still in awe, when I walk onto a set and of the things that they create and do. And it's gotten to the point where I am that person that watches a movie or show and I'm waiting for the credits, because I want to see who was an electric, who did the lighting, who did the costumes, okay, who set up, all of that. So it's been good. And along the way, I got educated by, these people in production. Well, you as a nurse, you can work as a set nurse, which is like their set medic, making sure that people stay safe or something happens. There's a nurse, on set, you can get them to the hospital, you can bandage them up, you can do whatever it is that you need to do. If there's an accident, somebody's sick, stuff like that. If there's a baby on set, no, I never even knew this existed. There has to be a nurse on set for the baby. And baby is from what, I forgot what age it ends, but I've been on set with a baby as
35?
young as 3 months old, and then they have time frames of how long they can be on set. Commercials and photographers use baby wranglers. So like if they got a bunch of little babies, that is just what it's called. You need to get them together, make sure they're still for the picture or the commercial, whatever it is. That's what you're there for. Yeah. And then being on set, when there are kids on set, there has to be they call it child labor coordinators. And in the past, they used to be called child welfare, because you work for the Department of Labor. So here you're a representative of the state of Georgia, and you're making sure that the production is following the Department of Labor's child labor and entertainment laws.
I got you.
And that's what you're there for. And so far, when I do that, it's been good, because you're the boss. You basically tell them what to do, when to do it, how to do it, because there are kids on set. But again, just because you're in control, just because you're the boss, and you have the power to stop a production or not, so forth and so forth, don't be a jerk. Be kind. And that is one of the educations that I teach people, bringing them into the set world outside of the box of being, a bedside nurse. It's just being kind, talking to people, respectfully, and letting them know, I'm just here to make sure the kids are safe. You do your job, I'm going to do my job. And in the middle of it, we'll work together. And with that said, I have been invited back, because it's an invite. There's no job list. There's nothing on Indeed when it comes to working in the filming industry.
Right.
It's word of mouth. It's, hey, I know this person. She's really nice. I enjoyed working with her. She gets her job done. Her paperwork is done when we wrap, yada, yada, yada. You need to call her on your next production. So I get a lot of work based on word of mouth when it comes to working on set. And I don't think I would ever give up the filming industry. I like it. It's different from, regular nursing. It's a break from regular nursing. But again, didn't even know that existed, and has for multiple years. And then I'll have to say, because there's not a lot of us in the world of production. Right. And I think you've been hearing a lot of, actors and directors, getting out there saying, we're trying to diversify a lot of these productions and these sets, because since it's so word of mouth driven, if my Caucasian counterpart, there's more of them than me, they're going to give out their brother, cousin, best friend's name more than I am or can. And so there's no balance there. And so, you have people like, Michael B. Jordan, who has a production, company, Ava DuVernay, all those people that are like, we want to start hiring more people of color for the crew. Not so much somebody on the front, the main actress and actor. Is the people behind the scenes that make all of this happen. And it very well could be, a lot more of us in this industry. So I have been, now granted, I have been sharing that bit of information with people and helping them get into the filming industry. But because it is a word of mouth industry, I am selective of who I refer and disclose, certain information to, because, I could refer the wrong person. I could refer somebody that's not a good fit, and then I'm not getting any more referrals, because they're like, wait, you sent me like 2 or 3 bad people. They came in here and they acted a fool, or they didn't work, they didn't do that, so forth and so forth, because the world of production is totally different than the regular world. It is not corporate. It is not the hospital. It is not anything that you could ever imagine until you get into it. And you are either built for it or you are not. And not everybody's built for it. So that's my other outside of the box.
Well, soon I'm sure you'll be on the other side of the camera, so we're waiting for that.
No, because I'm having a hard time with this right here. No, I stay in the background.
You did
I stay in the background, because in the background they have something called Crafty. I can go to Crafty whenever I want, get my little snacks.
Service. All right, craft service. No, but
yes,
no, you've done great. Because look, I am just a host. I ain't got nothing to say. That don't nobody want to hear me talk. They want to hear you talk. That's why you're here, right? Trust me, I already know. I've been helped. You've blown my mind thinking about nurses being on set, and we got agencies that specify in certain kind of issues in hospitals. All that thing has got me thinking about where I can get this next bag. But
yes,
you are a trailblazer, because I do know that nurses haven't really been on sets for very long, maybe in the last 5 or 6 years, if that, but ramped up a lot in the last 2 because of COVID. And for you to be there representing us in the way you do, even though I know a lot of it's just because they want to hear that Louisiana accent when you talk. But I know that you're doing a fantastic job, because you always take all the air out of the room. So you do a good job. I appreciate you. I always will. Thank you for your time. I got to get you back on here, because we talk about more than just nursing. Usually we don't talk about nursing. So it's surprising that we spent an hour talking about nursing, but we did somehow. But we can talk about how you have yet to age. We can talk about that later, because I ain't got enough shea moisture for this, because
you have not aged.
It's coming, trust me.
I am almost 50, and it shows.
No, ma'am. Too many crab cakes and chitlins for us to bleed in. All right.
Well, thank you. I will take that.
Thank you so much. All right. Have you heard of the Morning Meetup? The #1 community for entrepreneurs? The largest book club in America? Where 600 plus entrepreneurs get on a video call every morning, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, every morning, for the betterment of entrepreneurship. You heard of it, right? Well, click the link in my description and you can try it for $1. Just $1 for 1 week. And if you don't like it, you can leave. It's fine. But try it. You spent more than that on things you've never used and never will. So take $1 and invest in yourself. Or don't.